All right, we are live and we are super excited today. Double check a few things here and then we're going to get started. All righty. Another beautiful Wednesday. We are live. If you're watching us, please share us. We have a show going on right now. We're super excited to have a guest to talk about real estate, local in Wisconsin here. So stay tuned. But meanwhile, I am going to be sharing this feed here. If you're watching here, if you're watching us, please share us too. If you're new, give us a like. If you are a repeat offender of coming us in and commenting, give us a heart emoji. If you've been a long fan of us, give us a hug emoji. And we are going to be starting soon here. I am just going to be sharing a few more links. And we're going to be starting with a guest here real soon here. So stay tuned as I'm sharing the post here. So stay tuned for a second here. Again, if you're new here, give us a like. If you've been on here, give us a hug. If you've been a long time listener, give us a heart emoji. So sharing a few more things here. We're going to get started here. Awesome. What's going on? What's going on, guys? If we love your location, jot it down. If you're from Wisconsin, from Minnesota, from California, jot that down here. Get started right away. Here we go. We have here. Yo, what's going on, man? All right, we're gonna get started. All right, here we go. No further ado, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. This is our bi-weekly chat on how I built it. How I built it came about during COVID when I have friends and family come on and asking me, "Hey, Cecil, you own a couple business. I just lost my job right when COVID hit in 2020. Can you give me some pointers, some ideas how I can start my own business?" So you know what? I can tell you my own personal story, how I started a car shop, how I started a men's e-commerce brand, and so forth. But that's just my story. How about I give you some of my friends' story, how they started a beautiful restaurant, how they started a real estate empire, how they started food trucks, and so forth and so on. So that's where the idea came on how I built it. So if you're watching this for the first time, that is what it's all about. How I built it is about men who started their own business from very humble beginnings. And when again from the last show, we had a great guest talking about how his business. And today we have a gentleman from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, named Lor Vang. 3 kids in his late 30s. He just, man, this story is a must listen to. The guy was newly married, fired or laid off from his engineering job. It's like, where do you go from now? I mean, where can you go from then? What worse can you get? But he's here to tell a story. That's all. Welcome him. Lord, man, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. You're in your late 30s, in Milwaukee. And growing up, you grew up in the hood in Milwaukee, in the South Side with the Puerto Rican kids, right?
That's true. That's true.
But first, Lord, how'd you get a job, man?
How did I get my job?
Yeah.
Well, like you mentioned, through lots of through a long journey. So, yeah. After I got laid off, I realized that I needed to do something else than just rely on a job. So that's where real estate came in, and I actually started as a real estate investor first, and then along the way, I got another job as an engineer. But I ended up realizing that there's more to life than just being in a cubicle all day. And so that's when I really went down the journey of chasing financial freedom, financial independence. And I got my real estate agent license, and that's what I do today. So I'm still a real estate investor, but I added in the real estate agent portion of it. And so I'm with EXP Realty, and I still continue to invest in real estate. And right now I help other real estate agents and investors get started investing in real estate. So, yeah.
That not only did you help other real estate and do what you do, you help yourself out of getting out of trouble because during as a kid growing up in the south side of Milwaukee, you saw some friends that got arrested at 12 year old, and that opened your eyes like that's not the path for me, right, Laura?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, as we're, first generation home, right? We all came to this country. We never had much, didn't really know anything. Our parents didn't know any better. So, our parents are out there working, their factory jobs. Nobody's really watching us as kids, right? So, we're out there being bad kids, having fun, just playing in the streets every day. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Facebook, social media, things like that. You just had your buddies, your neighborhood buddies that you hung out with, and you kind of just watched and you realize, hey, what are these people up to? Your older cousins, things like that. And myself, I was the oldest son in the family. So my second youngest brother is probably about 5 years younger than me. So we had a big gap. And so I was always been like a loner, and being the oldest son, didn't really have, somebody to look up to. So, but I did have older cousins, and they were about 5 years older than me too. So they were in a different generation. And so I saw the whole gang life and all the things that they were doing. And I kind of like, nah, I think I'm good. I didn't, I don't want to go sit in jail because, getting in fights and, doing drive-bys or whatever, it just wasn't my thing. So I knew what I didn't want to do. So I'll just leave it like that.
Seemed like your cousin, getting arrested set you in your right path of where you needed to go. And during that time, while you were, your cousins and such, you guys were riding bikes everywhere in Milwaukee. You have your BMX bike and mongoose bike. You're just like riding everywhere without no fear or no hesitation or no stress as a kid.
That's right. That's right. Back then it's totally different than it is now, right? Um, we live to be outside. Today's society is a lot different. Having kids and watching our kids grow up with devices in their hands, it's entirely different. Back then we loved to be outside. We wanted to be outside. Now kids love being inside. You can't even get them out the door. So it's totally different.
Yeah, you tell them go outside, go play, and they do. They go outside and they go play a game outside, right?
Exactly. Or if the Wi-Fi doesn't go far enough, and they're like, oh, I'm coming back.
Your mom and dad. I want to speak about your mom and dad. Your mom and dad were just very hardworking factory workers, and your dad very typical. Actually, both people. You wanted you to be a lawyer, doctor, right, Laura?
For sure. Yes.
You're not even close to being a doctor or lawyer, but okay.
Right. So, coming out of high school, the next step that most high school kids think, right, is like, what's next for you, right? You're going to go to college. If you go to college, and what do you major in? And again, being the first son of my family to go to school, not having anybody to look up to follow, to kind of show you the way, you're like, I don't know what's out there, right? And so, of course, my dad, being Asian, you have Asian parents, they're like, man, you got to be like a doctor or a lawyer. Like, that's it. Anything else is a failure, right? but growing up, I mean, I was always interested in how things work. I was, the funny thing is I hate math, but it's one of those things where you hate it, but you think if you do it more often, you'd be better at it. I don't know. It's one of those weird things. But I ended up being an engineer because I like cars. I was in the car scene a little bit in high school. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to mechanical engineering. And so that's what I did. Of course, my parents looked down and they're like, nah, that's not good enough. But they let me do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, prior to going to engineering, you went to Franklin High School too. Not even sure where you want to head, but engineering into now real estate. What made you really thought about it? I mean, I want you to let tell the people here, why did you pick engineering? Going in.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, engineering just came to me because I've always been very interested in how things work, and even as a kid, I love to take things apart and then try to put it back together. Right? Sometimes you'd have missing pieces or extra pieces. Yeah, it didn't quite work out, but it was still fun just to figure out how things work. And I think that's just one of those things that you're just curious as a kid to do. And so that's kind of what drew me to engineering. I always like the science, the math subjects as well. So I did take a couple like electives in high school that was more on the technical side. Um, but yeah, and then like I said, I was more into the car scene eventually when Fast and Furious came out and all that. Everybody was on to cars, so I figured, you know what, why don't I become a mechanical engineer? So I went to get that major. I went to Madison, um, so University of Wisconsin Madison. I was fortunate enough to get a full ride there with my academics that I had at Franklin High School, and so I was a Chancellor Scholar recipient. And that I was smart in high school, but I never really had to work hard. It just kind of came kind of natural. I didn't have to study as hard. Um, but when I got to Madison, that was a game changer. Like I remember being there my freshman year, first semester. I basically flunked the entire semester, and I couldn't rely on what I was doing in high school, just like winging it. It wasn't like that. Everybody at Madison is like super smart. It's ridiculous how smart people are there. And for the first time in my life, I had to actually work hard at school, and that was crazy, right? And so being a Chancellor Scholar, I have that pressure, like, it just isn't handed to anybody. And so there was a lot of pressure from that, and then just being a young adult for the first time in your life, especially the first one in your family, to go to a prestigious school like that, to be by yourself for the first time in your life. You have everything at your fingertips. You can choose to do what you want to do. You could be great, or you could be doing nothing. You just sleep in your dorm and play video games all day and fail, or you can go party every weekend. And so at first, it was fun. It was exciting, man. Like if you've ever been to Madison or a college campus like that, the whole campus is your playground. And so at my freshman year, I got tied up into a lot of that party scene, and it was bad. Every weekend me and my buddies would go look for parties to go to. But after I flunked out that first year, I had what do you call it? Like a come to Jesus meeting, right? You have a come to Jesus with yourself. Like, hey man, this is your shot. You either step up or you're gonna fail out, and that's it. And so after that, I pretty much stopped going out. I went, I just stopped being as social, and I just started studying, started working hard. And it took me probably about, just a year and a half, 2 years to get my grades back up to be able to get into the engineering program. That's how hard it is. It's like to get into the program is another thing. Like all those like freshman, sophomore classes, they really just, their purpose is to weed out the kids who, don't really want to put an effort to get in there. And so I saw a lot of my friends actually, a lot of them didn't make it. And it was really interesting because my freshman year, we had 30 Hmong kids that were declared as engineering majors, pre-engineer. And I would say only 5 of us actually graduated with an engineering degree. And probably we were only the only 5 that probably actually made it to the School of Engineering. The rest didn't. So
Yeah. You came out as a Badger in UW Madison in 07. But I wanted to go right. I want to backtrack that because you mentioned you had a full ride because during even in high school, man, you were above your grade, and heck, even in elementary, there was time where you were uh, beyond the normal kids of Hmong kids, meaning you were your friends in that time. It was ESL classes, and you were in ESL classes because you were that smart of a kid, but all then you want to be with a cool kid and want to be in the ESL classes. But that kind of goes back to, again, a university where you had a full ride, but you were just partying, not really seeing the value of it until like noticing and being real. Like, wait a minute, these kids out here, man, they're among the best too. You know, they're top of their grit, as you know, and I need to step up my game, right, Lord?
Exactly. Right.
You know, you after after college, you know, we're gonna talk about going into your job as well and landing your first job as an engineer, which is super exciting. You know what I'm saying? Just getting your first job, getting done with college in '07, and going to your job, and then applying everywhere. I mean, you applied to quite some places, but the first one that accepted you was in Racine, right, Laura?
Well, actually, I got my first job accepted in Madison. Actually, I worked in
That's
Madison
right. That's right. That's right.
for about a year and a half, I think, and then I ended up getting married. So I was living in Madison for a while, but then I got married with my girlfriend in Milwaukee, and so I moved back home to Milwaukee, and I was commuting to Madison, and I was commuting for about half a year, and it's about an hour each way. And after winter came, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do this again next year. So I decided to look for another job, and I found a job in Racine, like you mentioned, and it was a French-owned company, and they told me, yeah, sales are great. They're like 200%, and this was a 2008. I got hired at this second company, and like, yeah, everything's going great. We're gonna send you to France. You're gonna get to train with like our headquarters over there, you know, and we're gonna treat you real good. And you're gonna get a lot of things out of this job. And I was like super excited. You know, it sounded fantastic. But then, 2009 hit, um, and sales numbers were down. And one day, I get a call, at being fresh out of school, and this is like, you're new to the workforce. You see the quarterly meetings. You're watching them. Everybody goes to quarterly meetings at their jobs if you're still working at a regular job, right? And you hear the numbers, and you're like, what does this all mean? Nobody really pays attention to that stuff, really. And especially when you're out of college and you're like, oh yeah, looks like sales are 50% down. It's not looking so good. And then you don't really think too much about it, right? And so one day I got called in to my boss's office, and he's like, hey man, I know we just hired you, but business is bad and we got to let you go. And I was like, fresh out of school, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we gotta let you go, like right now, like immediately. Like, okay. And so like after that quick 5-minute meeting, in comes the HR guy with the security guy, hand me my box. Apparently they had already gone to my desk and collected all my stuff. Of course, I didn't have that much stuff to begin with. I was just there for like 3 months or so. And they hand me my box, and they walked me out to the door, and they said, man, you can't go back to your desk. This is it. See ya. So it was really a big eye opener. Being, fresh out of school, you get a great job. You got a great degree from a great university. It's not what everybody teaches you is going to happen out there in the real world. And so, you go through, the thoughts like, did I do something wrong? Right. Or, is there something that I could have done not to get laid off? And the reality is, no, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just how corporate works. And so no matter how good of a worker you are or where you're at in that corporate ladder, if it comes down to they need to make the budget work, they're going to cut numbers. They're going to cut workers before they do anything else. So.
Yeah, you were when they let you go. I mean, at the time, in your mind, you didn't even know what the word "laid off" mean.
Exactly.
You're just like, you don't even know what the definition of it would it be. Who knows at the time what was going through your head? Is this like, so boss? Is this kind of like where I kind of get a vacation? I come back. Do I come back? It's just because you didn't even know what the definition of laid off was, right? That's how funny. That's how funny, but it was so real. It would really hit when it hits the fan. It's like, wait, I'm laid off, so I get a mini vacation. Oh, sure. They'll come back. I'll come back, but I'm looking at the security. He's looking at you like dead in the eyes, like, here's your box. get out, don't come back. You
Right.
know,
Right. And yeah, I mean, my parents are factory workers. They've definitely got laid off, and before, and I've seen them get laid off. But they're the blue collar, right? And so they get called back all the time. But now I'm the white collar office worker, and so it's like, oh man, like I didn't even know. Like the thought kind of came to me, like, is there a chance I go back? Is there a chance they're gonna call me back? But they never called, and they never called me back. And then the other question would be, well, if they do call you back, are you going to go? So, yeah.
this is where things slightly turn for Laura because you knew nothing about real estate. You were newly married. Oh nine. You just bought a house, and that house cost you 40K. But it's just like, wait a minute, Laura, how can you buy a house? You just got laid off. Like, where'd you get the money to get
Right.
the house?
Yeah. So, yeah, let me back up a little bit. So, I did get laid off, and I was sitting around at home for a couple weeks, enjoying my vacation. So, my wife comes home one day. She's a nurse. So, she's pretty solid. No fears of laying off there. But yeah, she came home one day and she's like, "Hey, I was talking to my sister, and my sister and brother-in-law said we should probably buy a house right now. They came across the house that's a pretty good deal, and they said we should buy it." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I got no job right now. How are we gonna afford this thing?" And she's like, "Well, just talk to them, see what's about." So we go over to their house for a family thing, like probably dinner, and we're talking, and my brother-in-law, my sister's brother-in-law, I mean my wife's brother-in-law, um, he's like they're an investor, so they've been investing for real estate for, I don't know, 20 years or so. But they do mom and pop stuff. They manage everything themselves. But anyway, so they've been investing for a long time, and there's a big age gap between my sister and her sister, like 10, 15 years, 20 years, something like that. So they're a different generation than us. But obviously they have, different experience, different knowledge, and different life experiences. So they're like, we've been investing for a while. We've never seen a market like this. They're referencing the crash, the real estate crash in 2009. They said, man, if I had the cash, I would buy everything I could right now. And, me being an engineer, I'm like, yeah, I realize I'm broke, but when you hear that there's a big opportunity coming, right? Like a crisis, right? And me I just went through a crisis myself, being laid off. There's opportunities in these crises that happen. And so whenever something like that major happens to you, you always have to look for, where's the lesson that you can learn, and is there an opportunity for you to grow from this and be better? And so with the engineering mindset, I looked at it at what they were presenting. They said, "Oh, yeah, this house is $40,000, and it's a foreclosure, and you could probably cash it out. You're going to have to cash it out essentially because the condition is not good enough for a bank to lend on it, and most banks don't lend under 100,000 or under a certain amount. They don't lend, so it's got to be cash purchase anyways." And so to answer your other question about where did I come up with the money? Well, we had just recently got married. So instead of doing a huge fancy wedding like most people do, my wife, she was interested in that, but I told her, well, would you prefer to have us spend the $30,000 on a fancy wedding to invite people to that one day? And majority of them we probably, don't really associate with, or don't see as often anyways, or care to really invite, but you just gotta show face and invite people, right? Or we could spend that $30,000 and get you a new car. And so she's like, okay, let's get the new car. And so instead of that, we did go to Vegas. We had our wedding in Vegas. That was just being her. So we did like a $3,000 wedding instead of that. And this was actually before I got laid off. We did the wedding already, but so yeah, we decided to get her the car instead, and then we saved a bunch of money, and we also had our traditional home wedding. And when we do, when you do a home wedding, you get the wedding gift money, right? So we had we had a decent amount of savings from that. And then I was working for about 2 years. I had some savings from that. And then she was working as well she's been working for a while. So as a nurse, they could work a little bit even before they graduate. They can have pretty good salaries working. But so we had scraped together basically all our savings that we had. And then we had credit cards. And so she had a couple credit cards. I had a couple credit cards. And so we borrowed money and we took all of our money, basically everything we had, our whole everything we got. And we just put it together and we were able to come up with $40,000. And what actually ended up happening, we did lose this offer on this house. We missed out. Somebody else got it. And then the agent's like, oh, that fell through. The person didn't have cash or whatever. I don't know. It fell through. The house came back to the market. The agent's like, well, do you guys want it still? And we're like, heck yeah. So, we ended up getting it the second time around. And after that, after we ended up buying out the house, me still being on my vacation, I didn't have any experience fixing houses. I didn't have experience doing anything. The house needed work. It needed a lot of TLC, like updating, things like that. I put in a new kitchen, put in 2 new bathrooms, did all this flooring and stuff. And I just watched YouTube. I did watch YouTube and I watched HGTV all day. And that's what I did. And before the house was even ready to move in, we moved in. Like, we were sleeping on air mattresses. We had folding chairs as our sofas. We demolished the entire kitchen for like 3 months. We didn't have a kitchen. We were cooking on like a kitchen camper stove thing. Thankfully, we did have 2 bathrooms, so 2 full bathrooms. So one was still, fully functional. We didn't knock out both of them at the same time, so that was good.
Woohoo! Luxury, a nice bathroom.
Yeah.
And I mean that that's was the '09 crisis everybody's aware of, and furthermore, you guys stayed there, and then the house equity went back up.
Correct.
And once you guys refinanced and made some money out of there, it's just like, well, what am I going to do with this asset of this house? So where'd you get the mindset to like, oh, well, let's go buy another house?
Correct. Yes. So yeah, that's the second part of what made us take the leap, right? Is that my sister's brother-in-law said, don't worry about it. Just put your money together, go buy it. And then your house is still worth, market value. Like, even though you bought it as a foreclosure at a discount for $40K, this house is probably $100K on the market. And so what you do is you just go ask the bank, because it's cashed out, put a loan on my house, meaning take debt on your house, right? So that you're going to pay the bank back a monthly payment, a mortgage on your home, right? And so that's essentially what we did. We had no clue what that meant. We had no clue if that was going to work. We didn't know like steps A through Z, whatever. But we just blindly kind of like, well, he says it works. So you know what? Let's go try it out. And so after we got done fixing it up, went to the local credit union and said, hey, you got this house. It's cash free and clear. I want to pull out some, I want to put a loan on it. And I want to cash out refi. And so the bank, they order appraisal to see what the house is worth. And the house came back. I think the appraisal was like $100K. And so even though the house is worth $100K, most banks will only allow you to borrow up 80% of the value of your home. So 80% of $100K, $80,000. So we took so they gave us $80,000. We paid off our credit cards right away. And the money that we put in there and the other credit cards we had to open, we opened up more credit cards because like Home Depot and Menards became like our favorite shopping stores all of a sudden. So we had credit cards to Home Depot, Menards, the 2% rebate, whatever. That was before they had 11%. And so those were our favorite stores for a while. And so essentially you pull out the cash refi, we paid up all that debt off. And then we still had a nice chunk of capital left over. And so, remember when I said I got laid off, I said, there's got to be a different way to do these things, to not rely on the job. And so while I was laid off, I was researching, I was studying, I reviewed the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is about, teaching people about assets versus liabilities, about the four different quadrants, being an employee or a business owner or self-employed or an investor, and basically just reshifting your mindset about, how people, live essentially. And so I realized that I got to go buy assets and not waste my money on liabilities like fancy cars, things that just depreciate money. I need to go buy stuff that actually produces money for me. So with that in mind, my wife and I were like, okay, yeah, let's go buy a rental property. And so it's still 2010 at this time, and properties are still in foreclosure. And so I hit up a real estate agent. I was like, hey, I want to buy an investment property. And we came across this house. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, single family. And it was listed for $30,000. The lady had died and her family sold it. So it's like they were just getting rid of it. So it wasn't actually a foreclosure, but yeah, we ended up buying that one for $30K. And that was basically, we cashed it out. And then we fixed that one up. It did need some work because this lady lived in it for a long time. She was like original owner, I believe. And so the place is really nice maintained because it's only been one person in there. So it's not all messed up, not beat up. But it was not as well maintained. We had to put a new roof. That was probably the biggest thing. And then other than that, we just painted up and got rid of most of the old stuff. We ended up renting it out. And we rented it out for about $750 a month. And our mortgage that we had pulled out from borrowing the money out, the 80 grand, our mortgage was $500, and our rental was producing $750 a month. So we were living free. So our rental property that we bought was paying for the house we were living in. And after that, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then at this point, I had gotten another job, and for some reason I got back into the comfortable mode of, okay, I got a nice job again. I got a rental, I don't want to get too big. I don't want to get too many headaches with tenants, and so I started thinking small again, and I should have just kept buying more. That's one of my regrets, but that's a different story.
Yeah, you got into getting back to a job into in the Milwaukee, and then went into the West Bend and pick heaters, which is technically your last job when COVID hit, right, Laura? Because the manager at the time was like, "Hey, man, yeah, it is COVID, but we want you to work here, and we prefer you to come in. But at the time there's COVID, and you're just like, can I possibly work remote?" And there was your idea was like remote. I want to work remote, but your boss is like, no, I would prefer you to come in and travel into and work. And that was when it really hit you, right, Laura? Like, I think enough is enough.
Yeah. So before I took that peak heaters job, though, right at the same time was 2018. So 2 years before COVID, I actually, at this point, I quit my other job in Kanawha because I had enough of that job. I wasn't, the culture was just toxic. And so I left it. And at that point, I decided to get my real estate agent license. And then the pick heaters job came calling. The recruiter kept calling me for like 2 months, 3 months to go interview. And I finally said, I was studying to get my agent license, and I did get it. And then the recruiter's like, you know what, just come in for an interview, man. Just come in. And I went and I got the job. And so I realized, okay, well, on one hand, I have a real estate agent license now. And then the other one, I have a job opportunity here. And so I realized that as an agent, your income is unstable and unpredictable, because now your income is only based on what you can sell, right? And so whenever you sell a home, then you get paid. So if you don't have any customers, you don't have any business, you don't have nothing. And so also at the same time, we were about to have my baby girl, our first girl. And so with that decision weighing again. It's like, well, life is asking you, well, what do you want to do? And so I decided to take the job and build up my real estate agent side business slowly to get used to the business, to build my brand and all that. And so I spent those 2 years doing that, also working an engineering job, which I did kind of enjoy, actually. But yeah, right when so leading up to COVID, I had actually done a good enough job on the side of my real estate agent business that I was making enough money, just about as much money as I was as an engineer. And right before COVID hit, like January, I think January actually, because the taxes were crazy, right? So like I was like, man, I'm making too much money. I mean, I have the problem.
That's a good problem to have.
Right, it's a good problem to have, but the problem is, like my wife's a nurse, she's got a good salary. I'm an engineer, I have a good salary, and then I have a side hustle as a real estate agent. That's too much money altogether, plus our investments, and so I got to lose something here. And so I had already planned to quit prior to COVID actually being announced and the shutdowns happening. But as we get closer to the shutdowns, and then I'm like, oh crap, now that everything's shut down, do I quit? Like, what happens to real estate? If I quit and I go full-time real estate, what happens? What happens if nobody buys? So then fear again, like, okay. And then, you know what? I stayed on and said, oh, and the exact opposite happened. Real estate exploded. Everybody and their brother was trying to get a house because they didn't want to be locked up in an apartment, and the rates were super low. And so real estate was like just absolutely going gangbusters. And then right before school started, as you mentioned, I told my boss that, hey, my kids are going to go virtual, so I got to be home. And if you are not allowing me to work from home, then I'm going to have to quit. And so they said, all right, see ya. And I said, okay. And so I already had the real estate agent stuff set up to run. And so it wasn't that big of a deal for me. So, yeah.
So fast forward to now. You have a website with a whole grade of blogs and content. You have a great YouTube channel explaining about all sorts of things. How to buy a home, where to start to buy a home, offering, so forth. It's just very educational on your YouTube channel. And then you have, of course, have a Facebook as well on it. And I mean, that was the biggest, because right now at that point, that was your biggest trajectory, right? It's either A, keep working for the job and your kids home, or B, leave the company, right? It's a big trajectory because you were fearing, it's like, well, what if I can't sell a house, right? Because again, selling a house is commission based, right? It's right. Commission based. You don't sell a house, you don't get paid. How simple is that, right? So you're back about comfort and holding on to the job, or really taking a step. Like, you know what? I have this real estate. I've been doing it on the side and weekends. You know what? Let's really push it. I've been putting content on my blogs. I've been making YouTube channels and such. I'm going to take that risk. What did your wife think? What did your parents think? It was a big risk getting in doing this.
Yeah. So, I mean, my wife's on board. She's always been supportive. Everything we've done, we've taken a risk. So at this point, whatever I do, I think she's just kind of like, okay, what other crazy ideas do you have? And so my parents, of course, they're like, what are you thinking? You're quitting an engineering job to be an agent, And so they, of course, they don't really understand, they have the typical, belief of what an agent does. All they do is open doors and they show people homes. They're kind of like the car salesman of homes, right? So yeah, they didn't really believe in it, but they didn't really say too much. They just said, cool, whatever. But yeah, so actually when I quit my job, then it took me over a year to build this up. I've been working on this whole real estate agent branding thing for the last year. And what I quickly realized was different about when you're doing real estate agent on the side versus full-time is that when you're doing it on the side, you really don't care if your clients actually end up buying a home or not. So, your livelihood doesn't depend on it, right? Um, you're there to serve them. You're there for, um, their benefit, and you're there to guide them. And you could show them 100 homes and they don't have to buy anything, and you're fine because you have that regular income coming. But once it switches and you don't have that regular income coming, and now your family's depending on you and things like that, now you really do have to step up your game, right? You have to go and generate leads. You have to learn how to run a business. And a lot of people don't understand this about real estate agents, is that it is a business. You're not just an agent. You're not just working for Remax or some faceless company. You are working for yourself. That company is doing nothing for you. A lot of people don't realize this, but the company that you work with, they do nothing for your marketing. They're not out there promoting you. You have to promote yourself. You have to promote your own agent business. Your broker is not going to promote you, and they're not going to share leads with you. That is not their purpose. So when I realized that I really have to go and learn how to build a business, build a marketing, build a brand, then this is where I really stepped it up, and I said, you know what, the traditional way is where you send out all those postcards you get from agents, or people will do a lot of cold calling. But that's old school stuff. I don't want to call people and get yelled at on the phone about do they want to sell their house or not, right? So we are in the age of social media, of video, and so I wanted to build a brand with what we're using today, and so I decided to partner up with a agent at eXp Realty who was a guru on YouTube, and so this is why I started my YouTube channels. And so now I'm able to create content on YouTube that's going to be there forever for people to, because like I mentioned, when I was like learning how to fix a house, I typed something into Google. How do I tile a floor? Dude, people have videos on this. They break it down for you step by step. Like, you got to mix your mortar like this. You got to put it like that. And then you lay it down, right? And so it's the same thing. Like, you type stuff into Google, they show you a video of an agent telling them how you buy a home in Milwaukee. Well, my video is going to pop up if you type that in the search. And so the YouTube and the video content and the digital branding is all like my strategy that I use to promote my business right now.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Laura. I mean, starting a real estate business at AKA a broker, you could have done that, but you took the other route, which is a great route too, is joining EXP, which is a great company, outstanding company, and they're there already, and just joining them being a contractor. Why didn't you just be your own broker? Couldn't you make more money?
Yes. Good question. So yeah, actually, to be a broker, you do have to work as a real estate agent for a couple of years first before you are allowed to become a broker. So you have to take another set of courses and then take another state license exam to get your broker's license. Depending on the state that you're in, obviously. Our state is like this though, where you have to transition from agent to be promoted to a broker, and then you can open up your own brokerage. And so the whole difference is that as a broker license now, you have the option to create your own brokerage. So you could have your own brokerage just for you. Say you're a single person, single party brokerage, right? So that means, what does it mean for you? It means that you don't have somebody to report to. You don't have somebody who's going to split the commissions with, right? Because as an agent, I'm splitting my commission with my brokerage. I'm splitting it, paying fees and things like that. But if you own the brokerage and it's just you got everything. However, you have to realize that in the game of like sales, it's really abundance mindset, right? How good of marketing can you do by yourself? And like no matter how hard you work, you could make 6 figures, you can make 7 figures as an agent or a brokerage. You could be working super hard, right? And you could build a phenomenal company for yourself. but you're going to be burning yourself out day in and day out. How long can you sustain this for, right? And so to leverage a company like eXp Realty that's already developed and established, eXp Realty is very unique. They're different from other brokerages because eXp Realty isn't a local franchise. Like if you see a local Keller Williams or local whatever company, they have a franchise. That means the local person just owns that brokerage. But at eXp Realty, there's only one brokerage, and it's the entire 50 United States. So that means that if I'm with eXp Realty as an agent in Wisconsin, and I want to move to Florida or I move to Texas, where my beach house is, and I want to get my license in Texas, I could still practice in Texas under eXp Realty, the same company. I pay the same fee. Or if I have a buddy that's in Florida and they want to get licensed and they want to partner with me, where I can help train them, I can help create marketing material, I can help them generate leads with YouTube and things like that, and they want to repeat what I'm doing in Florida, they can join me at eXp Realty, because even though I'm in Wisconsin, they're in Florida, we can still partner up together. We can still do work together. So it really expands your business to not just how far you can drive, because the problem with a lot of agents is that, sometimes we have referrals from, say, even Madison or Wausau, but we don't want to be driving that 1 hour or that 3-hour drive. Instead of that, when you're part of a major brokerage that has agents everywhere, we just call up another eXp agent over there. Hey, I got a referral for you. And, that's it. So it's really about expanding your business reach. Is the reason why I joined eXp Realty, and they have a lot of technology that they utilize. So for example, we don't have any physical offices. eXp has no physical offices. We do all of our work in the cloud. And so that really saves on the company's overhead on the brokerage. So their profits are really good because we're not paying money to hold real estate offices and things like that. So.
Wow, it sounds like after your explanation, there's some great reasons to not start your broker and just join a broker that exists, because you definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel, because for example, EXP or Keller Williams, you mentioned, they had to go through all the state legal paperwork, filing, insurance. I mean, there's a whole load of stuff that's that you have to do if you were to open your own broker versus just joining a real estate broker such as EXP, and again, you mentioned Keller Williams and such, where everything's laid out. You're not really inventing the wheel. You're just coming on as a contractor and doing your thing and being your own, being your own realtor in it, right, Laura?
Exactly. And one thing I didn't touch on is that actually at eXp Realty, they allow you as an agent to build your own brokerage under them. So like you see my background here, my brand is LV Realty. So that's my brand, and so as long as I say that I'm LV Realty, but I'm powered by eXp Realty, I'm allowed to essentially create a brokerage underneath their brokerage, meaning that if I go out and I find agents that want to work with me and partner with me at eXp Realty, they can join me, and I now get paid just like how brokers would. So whenever my partners, right? Yeah, the partner link. So whenever my partners make a sale, I will get a little bit of their commission. And it's not actually coming out from them, because the agents pay an 80-20% split. So 80% goes to the agent and 20% goes to eXp Realty. So here's some of my partners right there. And so I have a partner, Tria, in Eau Claire, and I know Richard in Minnesota, as well as Alex down there in Milwaukee as well. And my partner that I'm with directly is Jaime Resendez right there. That's my YouTube guru guy. So that's my guy right there that helps me with all my YouTube stuff. But essentially, yeah, eXp Realty, you can bring on partners, right? And they will, whenever those partners have success, you help them improve their business, right? So if they need help with the branding, the YouTube, the video content creation, the blogs, whatever, if I'm able to help them do that in their market and produce business for them, whenever they make a sale, I'm going to get rewarded a little bit, right? Just the same way as how a brokerage would get paid, because when you own a brokerage, you essentially are doing the same thing. You have agents under you, and every time those agents make a sale, you take a cut out of theirs, right? Out of their commission. So the cool thing about eXp Realty, now you don't even need to be a broker to do that. And I don't know if you're aware, but when you own your brokerage and you have agents with you, there are extra duties on top, like you have to review every single contract that they write. So if they write incorrect contracts, they write, they're doing bad deals out there, or they're being shady or slimy. If they get caught doing something, that's your name. That's your brokerage's name on there. So they're out there representing your, they got your business name on the front of their shirt, And so if it goes down bad, they get sued, it's going to be on you because you're their broker. And so at eXp Realty, you don't have any of the managing broker responsibilities. You can build a brokerage without any of that. So you don't have to worry about the back end office, the IT, the HR, the accounting. You don't have to do any of that. You just focus on the real estate side, which is what you are good at, right? And that's what you want to do. You want to stay in your lane. You don't want to be bothered with, oh, did I forget to cash my agent's check? Did I not deposit it yet? Things like that. So,
Laura, XP is an amazing company, and you have great partners, as you can see, helping you out in what you do and keep you grinding and on this path. I want to wrap this in the hour, and I always ask this question to all my guests, and it goes along something a line like this. Laura, when you embark your journey and going up in the hood of Southside and being a former Badger and going to engineering and then going to landing a great job as an engineer and making great money, and now owning 3 property rental, a vacation home in Crystal Beach in Texas. Now, can you tribute some of your hard work into good luck, or is it just your hustle, your hard work, or was just good luck, man? You even made it this far, and you're just this successful.
I would say it's definitely a combination of both. Especially to be laid off during the last crash. You can look at that, like I had mentioned earlier, during a crisis, you either let it just wreck you and ruin your life, or you look for the positives, right? And in that moment, sure, I lost my job. That was terrible. But at the same time, it was luck that the real estate market, right, just happened to crash at that time. And we had figured out a solution to put the money together to buy a home. And that's what really started everything for us. And so it's a combination of being prepared, right? When you have, what is the saying? Like, you have to be prepared when opportunity meets luck, right? And so if you're not prepared and the opportunity comes, then it's gone. So,
well, it's been amazing chatting to you. Lastly, Laura, if I want to pick up a house from you, where do I find you, man? Give us a pitch of where I can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you can reach me on my website, lauravanrealty.com.
Cool, man. Well, hey, if you need to go out to Texas, get a vacation home too, hey, check out Airbnb. Again, Laura, thank you so much for spending your time and having a chat during this afternoon. And for our guests, thank you so much for watching. Today's guest is Laura, and he's a great guy to hang out with and get to know, man. If you want to get a house in the Milwaukee area, hit him up. Well, I'm your host, Shiso Moore. Until next time. Bye now.